Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story is going to hit different because we're not talking about some young guy who fell for a bargirl in his first month abroad. This is about a man who planned everything down to the last detail. Spreadsheets, budgets, research. A guy who spent 2 years preparing for his dream retirement in Thailand, who knew all the warnings, who thought experience and age would protect him from the mistakes younger men made. His name was David, 58 years old, from Vancouver, Canada, and he believed that control and preparation were the same thing. He learned the hard way they're not even close. This isn't a story about money disappearing overnight. It's about 3 years of slow erosion, where saying no became impossible and yes became automatic, where every compromise felt reasonable until you looked back and realized you'd compromised everything. David didn't get scammed by a woman who took his money and ran. He got trapped by his own need to be needed, and by the time he realized it, getting out felt harder than staying in. Before we get into it, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. If you've ever felt trapped by your own decisions, like you couldn't say no even when you knew you should, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more real stories about guys who thought they had it all figured out, because David's story is going to make you question whether control is something you have or something you only think you have until it's gone. This email came to us 5 weeks ago. David still lives in Chiang Mai, but he's rebuilding from scratch, living smaller, quieter, trying to figure out what the last 3 years actually cost him. He wanted his story told, not as a warning about Thai women, but as a warning about loneliness, about what happens when you're so desperate for connection that you'll pay any price to keep it, even when the price is yourself. Let me tell you who I was before Thailand. I was a project manager at a telecommunications company in Vancouver, same company for 28 years, working my way up from junior positions to senior management. The job paid well. Over 120,000 Canadian a year by the end, benefits, pension, the whole package. On paper, I'd done everything right. Owned my condo outright in Kitsilano, decent neighborhood, nice view of the water if you leaned out the balcony far enough. Had investments, savings, RRSPs, all the financial boxes checked. But I was fucking miserable. I got divorced at 52. My ex-wife Linda and I had been married 24 years, raised 2 kids together, and somewhere along the way we'd stopped being partners and started being roommates, who occasionally argued about whose turn it was to take out the recycling. No dramatic affair, no big blow-up, just a slow realization that we'd been going through motions for years. The kids were grown by then. Our daughter Emma was 23 and working in Toronto. Our son Michael was 21 and finishing university in Montreal. When Linda and I sat down to talk about separating, it felt less like a tragedy and more like a formality. The divorce was amicable, almost depressingly so. We split everything fairly. She kept the house in North Van that we paid off. I kept the condo I bought as an investment property years earlier. No lawyers, no fighting, just 2 people who'd run out of reasons to stay married. She started dating someone within 6 months, a dentist she met through friends, and I was genuinely happy for her. Meant she'd moved on. Meant I wasn't the bad guy for wanting out. But being alone at 52 after spending your entire adult life partnered is strange in ways I wasn't prepared for. My kids had their own lives across the country. Emma called maybe once a month, usually when she needed advice about something. Michael even less. They weren't bad kids, we had decent relationships, but I wasn't central to their daily existence anymore, and that was natural. They were building their lives. I was just the dad they touched base with occasionally. My social circle was mostly couple friends Linda and I had shared, and after the divorce, those relationships got awkward fast. People chose sides or just faded away because nobody wants the single guy at dinner parties. The friends I had from work were colleagues, not real friends, people I'd grab lunch with but never called on weekends. I joined a gym, went regularly, but it's hard to make genuine connections at 55 when everyone's wearing headphones and avoiding eye contact. My weeks became routine in this soul-crushing way. Wake up, commute to downtown Vancouver, sit in meetings about projects I'd stopped caring about years ago, manage teams of people half my age who looked at me like I was a dinosaur, commute home, microwave something for dinner, watch Netflix until I fell asleep on the couch. Weekends were worse. Sleep late, go to the gym, grocery shop, meal prep, watch more Netflix, maybe grab a beer at the pub alone while pretending to be interested in whatever game was on. Then Sunday night would come, and I'd feel this dread about doing it all again. The winters started getting to me in ways they never had before. Vancouver winters aren't brutal like the prairies, but the grey, the endless rain, the darkness, by 4:30 p.m, it wore me down. I'd look out my condo window at the water and feel nothing. No appreciation for the view I'd worked decades to afford, just numbness. I started having these moments where I'd be sitting in my living room on a Friday night, alone, and I'd think, is this it? 28 years of career building, 24 years of marriage, raising 2 kids, doing everything society tells you to do, and this is the payoff. A 1-bedroom condo, microwave dinners, and nobody to talk to. That's when I started going down the YouTube rabbit hole. I don't even remember what the first video was. Probably something about early retirement or financial independence. But the algorithm started feeding me content about guys who'd escaped the 9-to-5 grind, who'd moved abroad, who were living in places where money stretched further and life moved slower. Digital nomads in Bali, retirees in Mexico, expats teaching English in Vietnam. Thailand kept coming up. Not the party videos or the seedier content, but videos about retirement, about cost of living, about quality of life. Guys my age, sometimes older, living in nice apartments for a fraction of Vancouver rent, eating out every meal for less than grocery shopping at home, getting quality healthcare for pennies on the dollar, looking genuinely happy and relaxed in ways I hadn't felt in years. I started researching properly. Joined Facebook groups for Canadian expats in Thailand, read forums, watched hundreds of hours of content. The numbers fascinated me because they were concrete, something I could analyse and plan for. My pension would be about 4,500 Canadian a month. I had about 400,000 in savings and investments that could generate income. In Vancouver, that meant a tight budget, careful spending, maybe one modest vacation a year. In Thailand, according to everything I read, that same money meant comfortable living, travel, dining out, maybe even saving. I made spreadsheets. Compared different cities. Bangkok was too big, too polluted, too expensive by Thai standards. Phuket and the islands were beautiful, but touristy and overpriced. Chiang Mai kept appearing as the sweet spot. Cooler weather because of the mountains, cheaper than Bangkok. Big expat community, so I wouldn't be isolated. Good hospitals, rich culture, easy access to nature. I could live well on 2,000 Canadian a month and bank the rest. But it wasn't just the money, though I told myself it was. It was the promise of purpose, of adventure, of not being invisible anymore. In Vancouver, I was just another middle-aged divorced guy, nothing special, nothing interesting. In Thailand, I'd be the foreigner, the expat, someone with stories, someone building a new life. And yeah, I knew about the women. The forums and videos talked about it constantly. How Thai women were more feminine, more traditional, less demanding than Western women who'd been ruined by feminism and entitlement. How a Western man could find genuine companionship, someone who appreciated him, who wasn't jaded and bitter. I know how that sounds now. I knew how it sounded then too, which is why I never said it out loud to anyone. But alone in my condo at 2 a.m, watching videos about expat life, that promise of being valued and desired again, it was powerful. I told myself I wasn't one of those desperate guys. I was just being practical. Why struggle alone in expensive Vancouver when I could live comfortably in Chiang Mai and maybe, possibly, find companionship too? I spent 8 months planning, got quotes on shipping containers for my furniture, decided most of it wasn't worth keeping, sold everything except what fit in 2 large suitcases, researched retirement visas, learned I could get a 1-year extension based on being over 50 with proof of income, opened a Thai bank account through a service that specialised in helping expats, joined every Chiang Mai expat group I could find, asked questions, took notes. I told my kids I was retiring early and moving to Thailand to teach English and travel. Emma thought it was a midlife crisis, but said if it made me happy she supported it. Michael barely reacted, said cool dad, send photos. I told my parents, both in their 80s, and my mother cried, but my father said if I didn't do something different now, I never would. My ex-wife Linda heard through the kids and sent me a text saying she hoped I found what I was looking for. I appreciated that. 3 weeks after my 58th birthday, I gave notice at work. My boss seemed relieved more than surprised, like he'd been expecting it. They threw me a retirement lunch, gave me a plaque. Everyone said the right things about my years of service. I felt nothing. The next day, I didn't have to go to the office and the relief was overwhelming. I left Vancouver on a grey November morning. The kind of day that made my decision feel absolutely right. Cold rain, dark sky, traffic backing up on the way to the airport. I checked 2 suitcases containing my entire life and didn't feel sad. I felt free. The flight was long, layover in Seoul, but I barely noticed. I was too busy reading my downloaded guides to Chiang Mai, reviewing my apartment shortlist, going over my budget spreadsheets. When we landed at Chiang Mai Airport at 11 p.m. local time, I walked out into air that was warm and humid and smelled like flowers and exhaust and something cooking. And I felt this surge of rightness. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally could exhale. I booked a serviced apartment for the first month, while I looked for something permanent. It was near Nimon Hamin, the trendy neighbourhood I'd read about, walking distance to cafes and restaurants and shopping. The taxi from the airport drove through streets that felt alive even near midnight, motorbikes everywhere, food vendors still cooking, people hanging out on plastic chairs outside shophouses, nothing like the dead streets of Vancouver at that hour. The apartment was small, but perfect. Studio with a real kitchen, good air conditioning, fast Wi-Fi, balcony overlooking the street with a partial view of Doi Suthet Mountain in the distance. Cost me 23,000 baht a month, about 1,000 Canadian, utilities included. My condo in Vancouver had cost me almost 3,000 a month in strata fees and property tax alone. I barely slept that first night, too wired, too excited. Woke up at dawn because of jet lag and went for a walk. The morning air was cool, people were already out, elderly Thai folks doing exercises in a small park, vendors setting up breakfast stalls, monks walking with alms bowls. I bought something I couldn't name from a street cart. Some kind of rice porridge with pork, cost 30 baht, less than $2 Canadian, and it was the best breakfast I'd had in months. The first few weeks were exactly what I'd imagined. I walked everywhere, explored the old city with its ancient temples and moat, found my regular coffee shop run by a young Thai couple who spoke good English, joined a gym that cost 800 baht a month instead of the $80 I'd paid in Vancouver. I ate street food and night markets and fell in love with some tam and khao soi and sticky rice with mango. I met other expats easily. There were Facebook groups organising meetups, coffee mornings, dinners, pub crawls. Mostly men my age or older, Canadians and Australians and Brits and Americans, all with similar stories. Divorced, retired, burned out, looking for something different. Some had Thai girlfriends or wives. Some were single and happy about it. All of them welcomed me into the fold without judgment. I started feeling younger. Lost the weight I'd gained sitting at a desk for 3 decades. Started sleeping better. Woke up actually wanting to get out of bed, instead of dreading the day, made plans beyond the next weekend. Started thinking in terms of months and years in Chiang Mai, instead of just trying it out. This wasn't a gap year or an adventure. This was my life now, and it was better. I met Nok about 6 weeks after arriving. There was a coffee shop I'd been going to most mornings. Nice place near my apartment. Good Wi-Fi. Mix of expats and locals. She was the manager, 38 years old, always there when I came in around 8 a.m. After the 3rd or 4th visit, she remembered my order, Americano with an extra shot, no sugar. We'd chat briefly, her English was decent. My Thai was basically non-existent beyond hello, and thank you and how much. She asked where I was from, how long I'd been in Chiang Mai, what I thought of Thailand, normal small talk. But she seemed genuinely interested, not just doing customer service. She was attractive in this understated way. No makeup, hair usually pulled back, simple clothes, smile that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. Not trying to impress anyone, just comfortable in herself. After a couple weeks of morning coffee chats, she asked if I'd tried any of the temples outside the city centre. I admitted I'd mostly stayed around Nimon and the old city. She recommended Wat Pa Lat, said it was her favourite, peaceful and not crowded with tourists. I thanked her for the tip, and the next morning I asked if she'd want to show me sometime as a local guide. She smiled and said, maybe, if I was serious. The next Saturday, she met me at the coffee shop on her day off and we took a songfayu up the mountain. The temple was incredible. Hidden in the forest, moss-covered stones, small waterfalls, barely anyone there. We walked around for an hour, her explaining the history, me taking photos, easy conversation about nothing important. Afterward, we got lunch at a small restaurant nearby, sat outside under an umbrella, shared dishes family style. She told me about her life. Born in a village near Lampang, came to Chiang Mai at 18 for work, had been here 20 years. Had a daughter, 15 years old, from a previous relationship that hadn't worked out. The father wasn't in the picture, sent money occasionally, but no real involvement. She worked hard, managed the coffee shop, took care of her daughter who lived with her in a small apartment near Sansai. Her tone wasn't bitter or seeking sympathy, just matter of fact. This was her life, and she was handling it. I told her about Vancouver, about my kids, and my divorce, and my decision to retire here. She asked good questions, seemed to actually listen, didn't judge or try to relate everything back to herself. We talked about the differences between Canadian and Thai culture, about what I missed from home, maple syrup and hockey and real winter, about what she'd want to see if she ever left Thailand, the Northern Lights and Niagara Falls. When we headed back to the city in the late afternoon, she said she'd had a nice day. I said I had too and asked if she'd want to do it again. She said, sure, gave me her line ID, and that was it. Natural and easy, no pressure, just two people who'd enjoyed each other's company. We started meeting once or twice a week after that, always as friends. She'd take me to places I wouldn't find on my own, local markets and small temples and restaurants where I was the only foreigner. She'd translate menus, teach me basic Thai phrases, laugh when I mispronounced tones and accidentally said something inappropriate. I'd tell her about Canada, show her photos of my kids, try to explain what winter was really like to someone who'd never experienced it. Around month 3, something shifted. We were having dinner at a quiet restaurant near her place, and she reached across the table and touched my hand while she was talking. Just this brief, natural gesture, and neither of us pulled away. After dinner, I walked her home like I usually did. But this time, when we got to her building, she asked if I wanted to come up for tea. Her daughter was staying with her grandmother that weekend. I knew what I was being offered, and I knew I should probably think about it more carefully. But I said yes. Her apartment was tiny, 1 bedroom, lived in but tidy, photos of her daughter everywhere. We sat on her couch and talked for a while, nervous energy between us, until finally I leaned in and kissed her, and she kissed back, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We started dating after that, though neither of us defined it at first. She'd come to my place after work. We'd cook dinner together or order in, watch Netflix with Thai subtitles, fall asleep on my couch. The physical intimacy was good, better than I'd expected at my age. But more than that was the companionship. Having someone to talk to at the end of the day, someone who laughed at my jokes, someone who seemed genuinely happy to see me. I met her daughter a month later. Ploy was shy, polite, spoke a little English. We ate dinner together at Nock's place, Thai food that Nock cooked, and afterward Ploy showed me her schoolwork, and I helped her with some English homework. When I left that night, Nock walked me downstairs and thanked me for being kind to her daughter. She said she'd been nervous about introducing us, wasn't sure how I'd react. I told her Ploy was a great kid, and I was happy to help however I could. That's when it started, though I didn't recognize it at the time. The helping. The being needed. The feeling that I had value beyond just my presence. A week later, Nock seemed stressed. I asked what was wrong, and she said Ploy needed expensive tutoring to prepare for university entrance exams. Her school didn't offer good enough preparation, and without private tutoring, Ploy wouldn't be competitive. It cost 20,000 baht, about 800 Canadian. Nock was trying to pick up extra shifts, but wasn't sure she could earn enough in time. I offered before she could ask. Told her I wanted to help, that I cared about both of them, that this was important. She cried and hugged me and said she'd pay me back. I told her not to worry about it. I was happy to do it. And I was. The look of relief on her face, the gratitude, the way she held me that night, it made me feel like I mattered in a way I hadn't felt in years. That was the first time. I told myself it was a one-time thing, just helping someone I cared about through a rough patch. I had no idea I'd just established the pattern that would define the next 3 years of my life. The tutoring payment felt good. I'm not going to lie about that. Seeing Nock's relief, knowing I'd solved a real problem for her, hearing her tell Ploy that I'd helped, and watching Ploy's shy thank you, it made me feel useful in a way my job never had. In Vancouver, I'd been a cog in a machine, managing projects nobody cared about, attending meetings that could have been emails. Here, I was actually making a difference in people's lives. That's what I told myself anyway. The requests started small after that. Always reasonable, always with genuine stress behind them, never feeling like manipulation in the moment. A month after the tutoring payment, Nock's motorbike broke down. She rode it to work every day, couldn't afford to miss shifts while it sat in a shop for a week. The repair cost was 15,000 baht. I offered to pay before she finished explaining the problem. She accepted with less resistance this time. Still grateful, but maybe she'd expected I'd help. 2 months later, her rent increased. The building owner was raising prices across the board. She'd have to pay 3,000 baht more per month, or move. And moving meant deposits and truck rentals and ploy-changing schools. Could I help with the difference for a few months while she figured something out? I calculated quickly in my head. 3,000 baht was about 120 Canadian dollars. I was living on less than half my monthly income. I could easily absorb that. I said yes. Her mother got sick next. Something with her lungs, needed medication the village clinic didn't stock, had to go to the hospital in Lampang. The bills came to 25,000 baht. Nok showed me the paperwork, the prescriptions, her mother's worried face on a video call. I transferred the money same day. Her mother sent me a thank you message in Thai that Nok translated, talking about how good I was, how her daughter was lucky, how I was like family now. I started keeping a mental tally at first. Tutoring 20,000, motorbike 15,000, rent help 9,000 over 3 months, mother's hospital 25,000. Just under 70,000 baht in 4 months, roughly 3,000 Canadian. That was 1 month of my Vancouver condo costs. Seemed reasonable for helping my girlfriend and her family through rough patches. Except the rough patches never ended, they just took different shapes. Around month 8 of us dating, Nok suggested she move in with me. Her landlord had sold the building. Everyone had to vacate within 60 days, and finding affordable places in decent neighbourhoods was nearly impossible. My apartment was bigger, I was paying for it anyway, we spent most nights together regardless. It made practical sense. I said yes immediately. Part of me had been wanting to ask but wasn't sure if it was too fast. If she'd think I was being a typical desperate foreigner trying to lock her down. Her bringing it up felt like validation that this was real, that she wanted to build something with me. We agreed she'd contribute 3,000 baht a month toward rent and food, token amount, but symbolic of partnership. She moved in on a Saturday. Ploy came too on weekends and school holidays, sleeping on a mattress we put in the living room. Having them there changed everything. The apartment went from feeling like a hotel room to feeling like a home. Nok cooked Thai breakfast every morning. Real food instead of my usual coffee and toast. We'd eat dinner together every night. Watch Thai TV shows she'd explain to me, fall asleep with her curled against me. I'd wake up to someone there instead of that split second of disorientation when you remember you're alone. Ploy warmed up to me over time, started showing me her homework without prompting, asking me to help with English essays, telling me about school drama in her limited English while Nok translated the details. I took them both shopping for clothes, to nice restaurants on weekends, to the zoo and the night safari and the elephant sanctuary tourists love. I was playing house and I loved it. The expats I'd met when I first arrived started making comments, subtle at first, then less so. How's the domestic life treating you? She moved in quick. You keeping track of what you're spending? Just looking out for you, mate. Seen it happen before. I'd laugh it off, say they didn't understand. Nok wasn't like that. Our situation was different. They'd nod with these knowing looks that made me want to stop hanging out with them. I pulled back from the expat community. Stopped going to the weekly meetups at bars. Didn't respond to group chats. Made excuses when people invited me to dinners or day trips. Told myself they were bitter old men who couldn't understand what real connection looked like, who probably paid for sex and judged me for having an actual relationship. Nok seemed happier when I stayed home with her anyway. She'd comment that my Farang friends didn't really like Thai people, not respectfully, they just liked what Thailand could give them. I started seeing them through her eyes. Started feeling superior to them. My kids video called less frequently. When they did reach out, I'd keep conversations surface level. Everything's great, weather's beautiful, Thai food is amazing, yeah, I'm seeing someone, just casual, no big deal. I didn't tell them Nok had moved in, didn't mention helping her family, didn't explain that my savings account was slowly shrinking. They had their lives, I had mine, no need to worry them with details. Around month 14, Nok came to me with a business opportunity. Her cousin Pawn, who I'd met once briefly, wanted to open a small restaurant near the university. Student market, good location, reasonable startup costs. She needed investors, was offering equity stakes. Projected profit margins looked solid. Nok wanted to invest, frame it as our future together, something we'd own instead of just my pension supporting us month to month. The amount was 250,000 baht, about 10,000 Canadian dollars. By far the largest sum I'd given, or invested, or whatever we were calling it. I looked at my bank balance, did the math. My savings had dropped from 400,000 Canadian to about 350, partly from normal retirement spending, partly from helping Knock's various family emergencies over the past year. Could I afford another 10,000? Technically, yes. Should I? Different question. Knock presented it as investment, not charity. She'd drawn up papers, showed me a business plan her cousin had written, introduced me to Pawn on video call to discuss details. Pawn seemed legitimate, talked about food costs and rental agreements and marketing to students. The numbers looked reasonable, if optimistic. 30% returns projected within 2 years. Knock would own 20% of the business, I'd own 20%, Pawn would own 60%. We'd be partners in something real. I sat with the decision for 3 days, watched Knock's hopefulness turn to anxiety, turn to resignation. She didn't push, which somehow made it harder. Just said she understood if I didn't want to, she'd figure something else out, maybe she could get a loan, but the interest rates were brutal. That last part felt like pressure, disguised as information. If I didn't help, she'd go into debt. If I did help, we'd build equity together. I transferred the money on a Thursday morning, told myself this was different from the other payments. This was investment, partnership, building our future. Knock cried when she saw the confirmation, said I was the most generous man she'd ever known, that she'd never had someone believe in her like this. We made love that afternoon, her taking the initiative for the first time in weeks, and I felt validated. This was right. This was building something real. The restaurant opened 6 weeks later. Small place, maybe 15 tables, simple Thai food menu aimed at students and local workers. I went to the opening party, met Pawn and her husband and the cook they'd hired. Everything looked legitimate. Knock was proud, kept introducing me as her partner, both in life and business. Other people there, Pawn's friends and family, looked at me with this mixture of respect and something else I couldn't quite read. Maybe envy, maybe pity. I chose to see respect. Returns were supposed to come quarterly. First quarter passed, Knock said the business was still establishing itself, needed to reinvest early profits into marketing and equipment upgrades. Made sense. Second quarter came, same explanation. Plus they'd had to deal with some unexpected health department requirements that ate into margins. I didn't push. Asking for my money back felt like admitting I didn't trust her. Like proving I was just another suspicious foreigner who saw every Thai person as a potential scammer. That's when things started shifting physically. I put back on the weight I'd lost when I first arrived, plus some extra. Stopped going to the gym regularly, too easy to skip, too comfortable staying home. Started drinking more, beer with lunch becoming routine instead of occasional, whiskey in the evening while watching TV. Sleep got worse. Waking up at 3 a.m. with my mind racing about money and decisions and whether I was making good choices or terrible ones. Knock was working more hours, or said she was. Home later, more tired, less interested in talking about her day. The physical intimacy we'd had at the beginning, that genuine chemistry, it faded to once a week, if that. And even then it felt mechanical. Like she was maintaining minimum required effort to keep me satisfied. I tried not to think about it that way, but the thought was there. I caught my reflection one morning in the bathroom mirror, really looked at myself for the first time in months. Heavier, greyer, older than I'd looked when I left Vancouver 2 years earlier. Eyes that looked tired and uncertain instead of excited and free. I looked like the expats I'd judged when I first arrived. The ones who seemed defeated and resigned, just marking time in a place that didn't actually want them beyond their money. When had I become that? Month 17, Ploy failed her university entrance exams. She was devastated, locked herself in the living room area where she slept, wouldn't come out. Knock was a mess, crying, angry at herself for not being able to afford better tutoring, angry at Ploy for not studying hard enough, spiraling. I tried to comfort her, but she was inconsolable. After she calmed down, we talked through options. Ploy could retake the exams next year, but that meant another year of expensive tutoring with no guarantee of better results. Or she could attend private university, less prestigious, but still degree granting, and start immediately without wasting a year. Private university was expensive though. 4 years of tuition, room, board, books, probably 400,000 baht total, 150 for first year alone. Knock didn't ask directly, just laid out the situation, the costs, the timeline, said she didn't know how they'd manage. Her mother couldn't help, already struggling. Her brothers couldn't help, they had their own families. She'd have to take out loans at interest rates that would bury them. Unless. She didn't finish the sentence. I looked at my bank balance. I'd spent the past 2 years telling myself I was living within my means, but the means had shrunk down to just under 300,000 Canadian in savings. My pension covered monthly expenses, but didn't leave much buffer. Another 15,000 Canadian for Ploy's first-year tuition would put me under 300,000 for the first time since retiring. The math was starting to feel tight. I told Nock I needed to think about it. Her face fell, but she nodded, said, of course, she understood, it was a lot of money. But the energy in the apartment changed immediately. She became distant, polite, hurt in this quiet way that made me feel like the bad guy. 3 days of tension, sleeping in the same bed, but may as well have been on different planets. Ploy picked up on it too, even more withdrawn, barely speaking. On the 4th day, I caved. Told Nock I'd cover the first semester, 35,000 baht, about 1,400 Canadian, and we'd figure out the rest term by term. Not the full commitment she'd wanted, but something. Her relief was immediate and overwhelming. She hugged me, said I was saving Ploy's future, that she'd never forget this. The warmth returned to her voice, the affection to her touch. We had sex that night, first time in over a month. I told myself I hadn't just paid for intimacy, that she was genuinely grateful, that this was what partners did for each other. But I knew, some part of me knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I was no longer helping out of genuine care. I was paying to maintain peace, to keep her happy, to avoid the coldness that descended when I said no. The transaction had become explicit, even if we never said it out loud. A month later, I ran into Pawn at Maya shopping centre. Just chance, I was buying groceries. She was there with friends. We chatted briefly, she thanked me again for the investment, hoped I was happy with how things were going. I asked casually how the restaurant was doing, playing partner checking in on his business. She looked confused for a second, then recovered, said it was fine, challenging but fine. Something in her expression made me push. Asked when she thought we'd see those quarterly returns, just curious about timeline. She hesitated, said she'd talked to Nock about it, excused herself quickly. My stomach dropped. That evening, I confronted Nock. Calmly at first, just mentioned running into Pawn, asking about the business. Felt like we should talk about returns timeline. Nock got defensive immediately. Said Pawn was stressed, the business wasn't doing as well as projected. These things took time. I asked directly when the restaurant had closed, because Pawn's reaction made it seem like maybe it wasn't open anymore. Long silence. Then Nock admitted the restaurant had closed 4 months ago. Lost money almost immediately, student market didn't support the pricing they needed. Had to shut down after 5 months of bleeding cash. She hadn't told me because she didn't want to disappoint me, didn't want me to feel like the investment was wasted. The money was gone, she couldn't pay it back. It went to covering the business losses and other expenses and just disappeared. I felt something break inside me. Not anger exactly, more like the snapping of whatever delusion I'd been maintaining. I asked what other expenses. She said family things. Her mother needed more medication. Her brother needed help with farming costs. Life things that came up. I asked if any of it was going to come back, if there was any plan to repay me. She said no, honestly no. The money was spent and gone, and she was sorry. But I'd given it freely as an investment, and investments sometimes failed. The argument that followed was ugly. I said she'd lied to me for months, kept me in the dark about a major financial loss, used my money for things beyond what we'd agreed. She said I'd never asked for contracts or paperwork, never treated it like a real business investment, always approached it like a gift I could afford to lose because I was the rich Farang. She said I'd given the money to feel important, to prove I wasn't like other foreigners, and now that it was gone, I was acting exactly like them. Suspicious and angry and seeing her as a scammer instead of a partner who made a bad business decision. Both things were true, and that made it worse. I had given the money to prove something, and she had lied about where it went. We were both right and both wrong, and neither of us could take back the past 18 months of choices. She said she'd move out if I wanted her to. Said it flatly, no tears, just exhausted resignation. Part of me wanted to say yes, end this, protect what was left of my savings and dignity. But the thought of going back to the empty apartment, the lonely evenings, being just another failed expat with a story about getting used, I couldn't face it. So I said no, stay, we'd figure it out. But something fundamental had broken, and we both knew it. The pretense of partnership was gone. What remained was a transaction we were both aware of, but couldn't acknowledge without ending it completely. She stayed because she needed the financial security. I kept her there because I needed the companionship. We'd become exactly what I swore I'd never become. And I had no idea how to get out without admitting I'd been wrong about everything.